When Republican presidential frontrunner Senator Robert Dole returned the campaign contribution of a gay Republican group, he found himself in hot water. Under heavy criticism, Senator Dole later admitted his initial action was a mistake. The gay Republican group is called the Log Cabin Republicans, and they consider themselves mainstream Republicans in favor of smaller government and low taxes and a strong military. Yet their existence has raised the ire of both the religious right and left-wing gays. Joining me now in New York is the executive director of the Log Cabin Republicans, Rich Toffel, and I'm pleased to have him here. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Up from Washington, D.C. Did this thing just explode for you when all of a sudden you had made a contribution to the camp? Why did you contribute to Robert Dole?
Well, first they asked us, and we've been working with the campaign for quite a while. Yeah. And the senator came out with some very positive comments in the New York Times Magazine, and then a few weeks later, he was flip-flopping on that and saying something critical about gays and lesbians. Already at that time, this is back in the spring, the campaign had talked to us about raising some money for them, and at that point, I said, well, we're not going to raise any money for you, and you'll have to get Lou Sheldon and the far right to sell your tables. And so we were called into the campaign and met with the Finance Committee chairman and members of the campaign. I was introduced to everybody at the campaign. I shared our concerns. We didn't want to see what happened to us, what happened with George Bush in 1992, a man who's probably comfortable with gay people, but kowtow to the far right in our party, and we were afraid that was going to happen again. Absolutely sure this wasn't going to be a problem. We talked about the tangible issue that we were working on at the time, which was the Ryan White Care Act. And we said, basically the senator's got a good record on this, AIDS issues. He needs to be scheduling that, co-sponsoring it, getting it to the floor. That would be a very tangible way. And he did. He showed a lot of leadership and worked with the Senator Nancy Kassebaum in getting that to a vote. So we were pretty pleased and we were working well. It was in the midst of all that they asked us to come to a PAC fundraiser where we brought the PAC check, and I talked to the senator about Ryan White. And what happened was then 3 months later, a reporter discovered it in an FEC report and said, do you know you'll be the first Republican to accept money from a gay group? And that was right after Iowa, and Senator Graham doing so well against Senator Dole, and the campaign panicked, I think, and said, we'll be beat up on this by the far right. We've got to show that we're far right. And that's when they said, we don't know who this group is. They're 100% disagreement with us on the issues. And
their agenda's not our agenda.
Their agenda's not our agenda, all that sort of stuff.
And by the way, we sent their money back.
And we're sending it back immediately. We're not going to accept it. And then for about 2 months after that, sort of moderate Republicans, people who were supporting Senator Dole, just kept confronting him, and so did the media. And every editorial in the country kept saying it was wrong, it was wrong, it was wrong. And then 2 months later, he said, if I had been there, I would have not returned their check.
About blaming staff.
My campaign staff did it.
Bad staff work.
Yeah.
And so what do you think of all this?
Well, our role in the party really is to educate on this topic, and our goal is to make this an issue where people have to deal with it. We're not in your face, but at the same time, we're not hiding who we are. And I think it was a good lesson. I think if you asked people 2 months ago, does going anti-gay in the Republican primary a plus or negative, they would have said, oh, that's easy. It's going to get the far right all excited, and there's nobody else out there. And this taught a lesson that it doesn't work, not in the Republican primary.
I want to talk about the far right in just a minute, but just stay with me. What's the gay population in America is what, 10%? Or what do they think?
It goes from 4 to 10%.
Okay. And so I would assume that the population on most presidential campaigns of gays is what, 10% of probably of most campaign staffs, wouldn't you, or more?
On campaign staffs?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, political staffs on Capitol Hill and presidential camps, I think, have a disproportionate amount of gay staff.
Including Senator Dole and Senator Graham.
Including everybody,
and all of them.
Yeah, even Pat Buchanan admitted the other day that he had gay staff.
On his staff?
Yes.
Yeah. And so how does he square that?
Well, there's ways of squaring it. You say, they're supporting me and I'm not supporting any special agenda, and that sort of thing. So there's ways of rationalizing it. But there were more gays working in the Reagan White House than work in the Clinton administration. I mean, that's well known in Washington. They had a nickname for themselves, the laissez-fairies, is what they called themselves. So I mean, people have been working in political campaigns in the Republican Party for a long time. It's just the difference now is people are coming out of the closet and saying, you're going to have to deal with me openly and honestly.
You believe, how much influence do you think, not just your organization, but the gays have on elections? As I understand it, that the mayor of L.A. gave some credit to your group as helping get him elected the mayor of Los Angeles.
I think in some key races and key places, our groups played a key role. I used to work for Governor Weld, Massachusetts, and we played, I think, a key role. The gay community supported him in his first and second races, and the first one was very close. The mayor of Los Angeles, again, took a chunk of the gay vote, and even Mayor Giuliani, also here in New York, took a chunk of the gay vote. That's an important group, especially when most political consultants would write that off to the Democratic Party.
And what about the power of the right? Do you think that they exaggerate their influence?
I do. I absolutely do. I absolutely do. I think the far right exaggerates, and the far left likes to say that they're very powerful too, because it is the Achilles heel of the Republican Party, is our intolerance, is our weakest spot. And so when Ralph Reed comes out and says how powerful we are, no one on the far left is going to challenge it. They're going to say, yes, he's very powerful, and that's why you need to support our party. I think that's a lot of the fear of Colin Powell right now, frankly, is that people are, if he gets in the race and you look at the numbers, the Republican Party is not so far right after all, and they're terrified that this big secret will be out, because they've been successful at getting people like Bob Dole, a centrist Republican, to be something he's not, to move him to the far right. And they want to keep doing that so they have jobs and power in the next administration.
It is part of the conventional wisdom that you move to the right to get the Republican nomination, and you move back to the center to win the general election.
Yeah, but I think one thing that's showing up is the Republican Party is not quite as far right as the right wing would tell you that it is. And the other is the American public doesn't like that. They don't like people veering from one side to the other. It turns people off.
Yeah. Do you and does your group have an agenda, a political agenda? I mean, other than issues I mentioned, other than in terms of whatever your economic philosophy is and whatever your philosophy is with respect to budget cuts and welfare cuts and tax cuts and whatever your philosophy is about the defense budget and strategies of a whole range of items, do you have an agenda that concerns or connects to your sexual preference?
We do. We believe that gays should be treated equally, and that doesn't sound too controversial. We believe gays shouldn't be discriminated. It gets more controversial when you start talking about the issue that comes up. Gay marriage was something people in our organization would support. That sounds radical in the face of it. Those sort of asking for equality. On the legislative front, this year, we made the Ryan White Care Act our legislative priority. Obviously, we're a community that's been very affected by AIDS. And there's been a huge chasm between the Republican Party and the AIDS community. And we almost, in the sense we're ambassadors running back and forth between the two sides, trying to get this bill through this year, which looks very good. Everything went through successfully, but it wasn't necessarily a given when the Republican Party looks at the AIDS group, and if they brand that disease a Democrat issue, it's dangerous. So we end up going back and forth on a number of different topics where we try to present, I think, a different viewpoint. I think we agree with gay Democrats on most things in the gay world.
But our things having to do with the
sure, gay issues, we probably agree. Our process, our style of how we would accomplish it would be probably different.
And also what would be different is your philosophy on all the other issues in terms
and
of
that's really
economic.
Where our division, sure. For a long time, people have described gay people as they must be part of the Rainbow Coalition. You have to subscribe to big government, more taxes.
Gay, feminists, and minorities are
sure,
all the same ideas.
And we all, and that is very limiting for anybody. But it's a whole new critique. What's exciting about, I think, gay people today is they're coming out wherever they are, whether that's the Roman Catholic Church or the Republican Party or in the Midwest. That's where change will take place. It doesn't take place when people feel like they all have to become Democrats, all have to move to New York or San Francisco, live in the same neighborhood, go to the same clubs and restaurants, dress the same way. That's not really where change will take place. Change will take place when gay people come out in Mississippi or in the Republican Party or in their church.
When will that happen?
I think that's the exciting thing that's happening right now. I think that's why you see the rise of gay Republicans. You see church groups, gay church groups, and coming up more and more. I think people don't feel they have to flee to a coast anymore.
In the Democratic Party, you've had Congressman Studs and you've had Barney Frank. Both have come forward. In the Republican Party, I know there's at least one
Congressman Steve Anderson.
Steve Anderson, who has acknowledged he was gay and came out, I think, to the defense of your group at the time of this, and I guess wrote a letter to Senator Dole or something.
Yes, he did.
What pressure are you under because you're in the Republican Party and because what do you feel in terms of people who you make angry?
Well, I mean, it's not, you're being controversial just by being openly gay in the Republican Party. But we get it from both sides because the far right in the party, we are anathema to them. It's very easy to dismiss ACT UP or a radical group, but when it is gay Republicans who say, we share your values, we're not against the culture, but we're gay.
We like the contract with America as much as you do, but we have these other things that are also important.
It focuses
and we view them as human rights
more.
issues.
Exactly. It just makes the discrimination more focused. Because they say, at the end of the day, you're still gay. And that's where our issue is. And it focuses more. We also get heat, obviously, from the gay left, who feel like our only strength will be if we were all in the Democratic Party. We need to be a strong voting bloc in the Democratic Party, and that will be our success, and that'll be our salvation. And so every vote given to a Republican Party is wasted, wasting our strength. And so those are two competing views. So change takes place when you're standing against both norms.
President Clinton, because of how he's handled the issue, will he receive an overwhelming percentage of the gay vote, you think, in 19? So when, in other words, when gay voters go into the polling, you know, are issues of sexual preference paramount to them?
I guess what happened in 1992 is that the gay issue did become paramount for gay Republicans. The story isn't that gay Democrats voted for Bill Clinton. They always will. They'll always vote Democrat. But gay Republicans were angry at Houston, and Pat Buchanan in primetime voted for a Democrat.
The Cultural War.
Yeah, that's the story. Now, for gay Republicans and who heard Clinton's promises and don't agree with him on a lot of his issues, but the gay issue so eclipsed every other issue for them. I don't know that they'll believe him this time when he says he'll do things. I think his credibility is strained, even among gay Democrats. So it remains to be seen if he could win over. I think it only depends on if the Republican Party puts up a candidate too far to the right. And I believe that only the Republican Party can elect Bill Clinton, in a sense, by putting forth a far-right candidate.
What happens if Phil Gramm or someone that to the right is nominated? Do you support Phil Gramm, or do you go over and support?
No, we wouldn't support Phil. We would not support Phil Gramm. We would not. People will do what they're comfortable with, but we would not, as an organization, I'm sure, endorse Phil Gramm, because he has a record of using the gay issue as a wedge issue. He's already done that in this campaign.
In senatorial campaigns.
And he did it in this campaign too. In Iowa, he got into a school board race where he attacked openly gay school board member who lost his race just because he wanted to pander.
How many members in your organization?
There's 10,000.
10,000. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.